Good evening and welcome to Hello It's Us, Perspectives on Inclusion. This program is dedicated to educating the general public about issues which are important to people with disabilities. But as you watch, we hope that you will recognize that those same issues are important to all people because people with disabilities are certainly an integral part of the community at large. Hello It's Us is brought to you through a partnership between the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development, Uptown Bill's Coffee Shop, and our good friends here at Public Access TV. My name is Mike Hoenig. I work at the University of Iowa Center for Disabilities and Development as a program coordinator, and I also serve as a co-host for Hello It's Us. Keith.
My name is Keith Ruff. I'm retired now, but I advocate for disability whenever possible. And I just published my first book. So, welcome, Julie.
Thank you very much.
Keith, why don't you go ahead and tell us, this was your idea for a Parks and Rec program, and we have Julie Seydell Johnson here, and thanks, I want to welcome you as well. Thanks for being here. So tell us, tell the audience what it was that gave you the idea to...
One morning getting up, I heard on NPR that the local news that City Park was being renovated. So I got the idea that we should have somebody in charge of Rex and Park here to give a perspective on the accessibility of the park. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you very much. It's exciting to get a chance to talk about this because it's been a very important part of our department for the last 3.5 years, that's been the time that I've been here.
Tell us a little bit about your history. It sounds like this Parks and Rec have been a big part of your life for quite a while.
Right. So I've been a Parks and Recreation director here in Iowa City for 3.5 years. But for 10 years before that, I was in the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And before that, I was Coralville's Parks and Rec director for 5 years. So I have a lot of experience throughout a number of parks and recreation systems and work both statewide and nationally on a variety of topics related to this.
You shared a little history. I'm a big history person, so you shared a little bit of history about your connection with your great-grandfather, and it would be fun for you to share that with your audience.
Yeah.
So it's fun for me to be here in Iowa City, although I don't know most of my Seydell family roots because of a lot of different reasons. When I go to Oakland Cemetery, my grandfather, great-grandfather, and great-great-grandfather are all buried in the very same area of the cemetery, dating back to the 1840s here in Iowa City. And one of them helped with some of the carpentry on Old Capitol when it was being built. So we have a long history as a family here in Iowa City, but a relatively short tenure for me. I actually grew up near Central Iowa.
One of those other universities is.
Yeah, and I'm a graduate of that other university. No Cyclones.
All right. So tell us, you said that for the last 3.5 years that since you've been here, that the accessibility issues have been really an important part of what you do as Parks and Recreation Director. So could you tell us just a little bit about some of the projects that you either have been involved with or are that are underway right now?
Sure. So first of all, back in 2015, we did a park master plan and accessibility audit throughout an entire system. We have 50 parks. Most of our things say 49, but with Riverfront Crossings Park coming on board, we now have 50 parks throughout the community. And I tell people this is probably the best and most exciting time to be Parks and Recreation Director here because there's such an investment going into the parks. So that park master plan had several public meetings, and one of the things we heard loud and clear is that we need to make sure the parks are accessible to as wide a range of people as we possibly can. It's a goal with the city council, it's a goal with our park commission. So we did an assessment of each and every park, from the time you arrive either at the sidewalk or in the parking lot to getting to the major attractions throughout the park. Can someone using a mobility device get there? And we found there were a lot of needs throughout our system, I'll just be real honest. And we are addressing them one by one. Some of the smaller projects include new paths and access that we've added at Tower Court Park, Highland Park, Pheasant Hill Park, some of the smaller parks.
Okay.
We have several large projects happening. City Park, as you mentioned, is getting a brand new playground, and as is Willow Creek on the west side.
Right.
And both of those are very large projects, like $850,000, working towards new and different types of play equipment. And it's one of the bigger challenges as a Parks and Rec director is how do we design and implement park facilities that are as welcoming as possible for the widest range of people. Not only physical accessibility, we hear a lot from parents who have children that need quiet space or they get overly stimulated, or they have vision impairments, or they have all sorts of different things. So we are trying to be as welcoming as possible, and I think these two large projects take us much farther in that direction than we've done in the past.
And we forget we have a very large elderly
Correct.
population, and they need disabilities.
Correct. So with our playgrounds, you think, well, you design them for little kids. Well, the elderly, the grandparents like to come watch.
Yes.
Or, when my dad was in his final years, he loved to just go to dog parks to sit and interact with the dogs. So it's not just the actual active users that we build the parks for. It's all the ancillary people that come with those active users, or just want to get out and experience nature and see what's going on around them.
That's great, because there is a big audience when you think of everybody, at some point or other probably goes to a park, even if it's like for a picnic, and making sure that, the benches, people can get it in and out easily from the picnic tables and things like that. So, one question, you mentioned that you had the meetings where you brought in constituents were invited to participate. And you heard a lot about the accessibility. So after that happened, did you do a survey of each park? How did you prioritize, or how did you actually start identifying what needs were really out there?
So yes, we hired a consulting firm to come in and walk through every single active park that we have. And we focused on accessibility at this point from the parking lots, to the playground equipment, to the shelters, to the restrooms, and having accessible restrooms. I hate to say it, we are not able to do everything at this point, but those were our top priorities.
Sure.
With that. And then it's several things come together. So along with the accessibility needs of the park, we look at the age and condition of the equipment. So some of the parks we know are going to be completely renovated within the next 5 years. So like I said, this year is Willow Creek City Park.
Yes.
Creekside is being done right now. Next year will be Weatherby Park, Scott Park on the east side, Fair Meadows will get a new playground, and one other that I've forgotten off the top of my head. Anyway, for those larger renovations that are coming up, we are waiting until we do the larger renovation, unless it's a very simple fix that we can add. For those parks that aren't scheduled for the next 5 or 10 years, we've gone in and done some remedial work in those. So those are smaller projects, like paths and curb cuts, additional benches, those type of things. We're seeing a lot of those small projects. So it will be at least a 10-year cycle before we get around to each of the parks. But I feel like we are making a lot of progress each and every year. And the accessibility has to do with so many different things. Parents with strollers are thanking us. So it's universal design. People that said, I couldn't get from my car to the playground because of one particular obstacle, maybe a curb cut, we're doing that. Anytime we have a public works project in the area of a park, we make sure we look at the sidewalks surrounding the parks, the curb stops, the bus stops, kind of give it a comprehensive look. So we have a very small park in the Manville Heights area called Black Spring Circle. And that's one that's going to get some curb cuts and more accessibility paths in it because they're going to be redoing the streets and utilities up there later this summer. So we're doing our best to kind of hit it on all fronts whenever we can.
Julie, did any other constituents on the committee have a disability? What I mean,
Yes.
did you get any input from the people who it would affect?
Correct. So we actually have at least one special focus group that relied on people that use wheelchairs or use mobility devices, as well as a number of service agencies that help provide services to a wide range of people. We had them in one group. On our core group, we had at least one individual who was using a wheelchair and one or two parents that have children that had different disability needs. And that happens each and every time that we go through a playground renovation. We have public meetings, we talk with the neighbors. We have a number of groups that we're consulting with specifically to look at how can we make it more welcoming to a larger group of people. And we don't hit everyone. I wish we could. I wish we could make a playground that was 100% inclusive for everyone. I think we're improving, but that's just very difficult to, just when we think we've hit every need that we know of, someone else comes forward and says something that we never considered. So it's a constant listening and design process for us.
Well, with today's technology, it will be a big help.
Yeah. Every little bit that we can do, I hope
Yeah.
helps. Yeah.
I'm curious, speaking of that, I'm curious about, you mentioned working with some other disabilities, so excuse me, I know that there's a lot of accessible wayfinding technology that's available out there, just even like when you go to an exhibit or something in a museum, that you can sometimes get a handset that will describe things around the area and that sort of thing. And you did mention that you're aware, you're thinking about features to accommodate people with low or no vision. So I am curious what you have come up with, either tangibly or things that you thought about in terms of accommodating that population.
Some of it in our wayfinding is trying to make it so inherent in the design that you don't have to have high vision to understand where you're going and how to get there. So things like markings in the cement or different colors or different types of surfacing to help guide people that have lower vision. We haven't gotten into more of the audio other than at crosswalks and things that we're involved with Public Works. But it's something that I think we can continue to look at of what other, we don't have a lot of interpretive signage. That would definitely be an area to have some audio with. I'm thinking of our cabin restoration project in City Park. We will have definitely have some interpretive signage up there, and that might be a good location to try that.
Yeah, another thing that was exciting, this was, gosh, I think it was over 25 years ago, and there was a trail area out by the reservoir, and they had put in some sort of I don't remember if it was fencing or what, or like a border that you could actually touch and walk around. It was an accessible trail. It was initially created for people with physical disabilities, but then they put this rail up so that those of us, a person that was totally blind could actually just stay along the rail and walk the entire trail. It was pretty neat. So just something to,
Yeah, that's
think about.
interesting and something we can definitely consider.
Julie, I know there are Jews that were injured, but does the city interact with the youth a lot?
Do we interact with the University of Iowa
On the parks.
and the parks? We do. We have, especially regarding trails and our connectivity.
Okay.
We work with the university on a number of projects, the city of Coralville, North Liberty, Johnson County. Although we are each our own separate entity, we have a lot of communication. I think that's really improved in the last few years.
Okay.
To try to make sure that we offer a broader network throughout.
that's great. I wanted to go back to your comment about universal design, because I think that's so important that sometimes, and this is a message that we try to, one of the reasons that we started doing Hello, It's Us, is that we really want, yes, we do cover the topics of disability, but this goes way beyond just people with disabilities. So when you gave the example of a stroller, people with strollers, how much they like the ramps and the accessible design. And you also mentioned accessible restrooms, and obviously, if you're in a wheelchair, that's essential. But I can remember I used to attend an event at LeClaire Park in Davenport, which is where I actually live. And every summer, I always kind of dreaded it because I knew at some point I was going to need to use the restroom. And for many years, they just brought the little porta potties in there, and they just weren't a lot of fun. It wasn't very much of a good experience. And when they finally put in accessible restrooms, I physically don't need it, but it was such an improvement. And I mean, just in terms of the hygiene and things like that. So I'm glad to hear that you see more benefits in just, okay, we're going to accommodate people with disabilities and we're going to comply with the law. It seems like you have a much broader vision than that.
And restrooms can actually be a really interesting topic for Parks and Rec Director. We have been moving towards a single stall restroom in most of our facilities now that is universal for either sex to use.
Yes.
And includes changing tables. And at Mercer Aquatic Center, coming to Robert A. Lee Aquatic Center, the new Willow Creek project, we've actually upsized the changing tables in those accessible restrooms because we've heard a need of people who are helping larger individuals or adults change at our facilities. And we just simply didn't have a good place for that. So although it really helps serve the folks that need it for that reason, we also hear from families that love that there's a restroom that's big enough for them to go in as a small group and use together. So that's been the design that we've been moving towards. We've had projects, as I said, at Robert A. Lee Rec Center downtown. We have 2 new accessible restrooms there, and then another one coming off the pool deck later this summer, fall. At Mercer Aquatic Center, same thing. We took the 2 on-deck restrooms and opened them up so we could make it more accessible and provide that changing area. Willow Creek Park, the new restroom there, was actually upsized specifically for that reason, as will most likely Weatherby next year. So as we move through the parks, our park staff loves them because they're easier to clean, because they're bigger and the individual space is nice, but I think a whole wide range of users like
Oh,
them.
absolutely.
A lot of people don't realize a little more accessibility. You mean someone can use the restroom on their own.
Correct. Well, and I think of that with our playgrounds and some of our other facilities is we don't want necessarily a special playground just for a person who has a certain disability. We want a really fun place that integrates and attracts a whole range of people and that is welcoming so they can actually play together. Willow Creek Park, the new playground there, has a really cool it'll have a cool new music area, which is not a climbing feature, so it doesn't need mulch or it doesn't need the pour-in-place feature, so it can be on paved surface. But it has a little stage, it'll have a little kind of marching band area. It looks like you can pretend like you're in the marching band.
and it has musical equipment. And we think that will be very popular for just families to hang out in. No matter what your reason for wanting to use it, we think it'll be popular. That's our first playground that specifically has a quiet area in it. So although it has a fairly large, fun, active place, it also has kind of a side quiet area with what I can only describe as a little clamshell that kids can kind of climb into and just, for those that need to get away and let their senses calm down, we're trying to provide those places as well.
That's really great too.
Yeah. The more we hear from parents, the more we know what we can do to make it, to make the experiences better. Swings, I've never seen a community that likes swings as much as Iowa City does in all my years. But so we look at a whole variety of different swings. We have group swings that people can get in and lay down. We have a really nice parent-taught swing where the parent faces a child or a smaller individual and they swing together. That's been one of our more popular additions. And I've actually seen people put their dogs in the swing and swing their dogs. So it's not just people that are using the parks. But I think that as the playground manufacturers come out with new and better and different things, we keep trying them and found some good winners.
It's good to be part of a community. That would do the need of a variety of people.
Correct. And that's our intent. We want it to be to feel welcoming to a wide range, not only usable but welcoming and inviting.
That's great. What do you attribute that to? I mean, obviously you have a commitment to that, but you're one individual. So do you think it's staff? Is there a park board or something that helps, that governs what happens?
So we have a park commission that oversees all of Parks and Rec operations. They're appointed by the city council.
Okay.
So we're a city department. And I think it comes largely from the council and their funding for us and their belief that we want to be an equitable community to all, equitable and inviting. So having our parks and natural areas inviting to a wide group of people. I often say my goal as Parks and Rec director is to get people off their couches at night and getting to know their neighbors. Because the more we spend time in space with in a space that we share with other people, the more accommodating and you get to know them. So you feel like you can help them in times of crisis, or it really builds our engagement of our community.
Is there any way, probably, I don't know how you would do this, but is there any way just even visually to kind of assess as you make these improvements if more people are doing that and getting off the couch at night and showing, obviously, they don't have to go through a turnstile or anything like that, but just to kind of, as you would probably visit, are you noticing any increases yet? Or?
We are, and believe it or not, we measure by the amount of garbage left behind usually. And I would tell you, our parks are well loved and well used. The newer playgrounds especially, we watch social media to see families that are posting pictures from it, or we monitor the use, like I said, through the use of dog bags and through the use of the garbage throughout the park. And I can't tell you it's working in every single neighborhood, but I would say this is a community that loves their parks and is out and about. Not as much in the winter months, of course, but during the warmer weather months, it's a great place to be outside.
I know that Piedmont playground gets used a lot every day.
It does. Yeah, down in the Ped Mall, and it's been challenging this year with the construction, but, and I think that could be said to a number of our parks too, is that unfortunately, to make these renovations, we often have to close the park for some time, and I can just promise that it's making it better, but it's really inconvenient in the meantime, we get that. So.
Well, between the construction and the weather this year too, that's not been so hot.
Yeah. it's been a frustrating weather year for us. Hopefully we're coming to the end and they're gonna have just a great summer through the rest of the summer.
And I think part of the cooperation you're getting is that we have a highly intellectual community.
I would agree.
And they're very aware.
Yeah, they value our public spaces. We find that we have a community that uses our public
Yeah.
spaces. And they value the service that they pay for through their tax dollars that we're able to provide. And as a staff, I have to tell you that I can brag on my staff all day, but we have people that have been here for 20, 30 years.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
they love the community as much as all of you that live here. And they take a lot of pride. It's been a struggle. I mean, we've taken our share of mowing complaints this spring. We just simply cannot keep up with the grass at the moment, but our staff really does care, and they really care about making it a better place.
That's great. I had no idea there were 50 parks.
I didn't
We
even.
were curious if there's even space, whether there are new projects, either parks to be built, or do you have it sounds like you have a pretty solid strategic plan on getting through all the parks and updating them, but is there space for more, or are we pretty parked out here?
There are still some new parks and some new lands that will be coming online in the next 5 or 10
Wow.
years. As development happens to the north and there's some new neighborhoods in the west, there is land that has been dedicated and set aside for parkland. A lot of it is just natural space right now, but as those developments build up, I think you'll see more there. We would love to do some more infill in the neighborhoods closer to downtown. That's one of the areas that shows up as deficient on parkland. And that's a little misleading because we have the pet mall downtown and we have all the university space as well. But we're also always kind of looking for opportunities for where are the gaps in our system, where do we not have service that's convenient for you when you leave your front door. And so I think you will still see smaller parks. Riverfront Crossings, which the grand opening will be July 20th of this year. Riverfront Crossings is a new 18-acre park on the former site of the wastewater treatment plant. And that is by far our largest addition of a new park. It's been a really exciting
I
project.
didn't do it.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
I think that's neat to keep up with the population flow, because obviously things are still expanding, and a place like North Liberty, do they have their own Parks and Rec?
They do.
Oh, they do. Okay.
So throughout the state of Iowa, the most common is to have the city, each city have their own Parks and Rec department, and you're even seeing that in some of the very smaller communities in Iowa now, so I think that's exciting. And then the county parks tend to take the gaps between each city and town.
Well, the time is just going fast. So we'll definitely want to stay in touch with you, because I work, one of the other grants that we have at the Center for Disabilities and Development has to do with improving physical activity among people with disabilities.
Yes, we'd love
You
to
seem
talk
like
about
a
that.
model organization to partner with, so don't be surprised if you get another phone call or email on a totally different subject. But
That would be great.
we are wrapping up here already. Can't believe how quickly the time flies, but I just want to thank you for coming in, making some time for us, for giving us some excellent information about the park system in Iowa City. And of course, we'd also like to thank our sponsors and our viewers, either on PATV or on YouTube. And Keith, I'll flip it to you to close us out.
And thank you for the knowledge you've given the general public. And thank you for all your efforts to make things accessible for all.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today. It's been a lot of fun.